ice baths is another big thing that people use for recovery. There's been some research and all this stuff about saying, oh, ice doesn't really do anything or slows down healing. And I don't know what the science is behind that and the research or what they say. I just know what I know. And I know that ice has helped a ton of my athletes. And I've seen it with all my athletes. They ice, especially if inflammation is the main problem. It's like, oh, it's ice. It slows down everything. But, well, sometimes your body does need to slow down. I still say ice is probably the closest thing to a miracle cure for an athlete because it will always bring more blood flow than heat. Because when your body sits in an ice bath or it has a bag of ice on it, your brain thinks that tissue is going to freeze to death. It's almost like we're in danger. And you kind of want to trick it into thinking that. And then what happens is that your vascular system dilates to 4 times bigger than what it used to be in order to bring fresh blood to that area. That's why your skin turns all red after you've been icing, because it's getting flushed with all this fresh blood. So now you just basically opened up, we went from a 2-lane highway to a 5-lane highway for the blood flow. So you get tons of fresh blood in there, which, like we said, blood is kind of the king of healing, queen of healing, and that's what's needed over there. So the cold brings that. It also stops a lot of that spasming that happens. You ever throw snowballs with no gloves on and your hands kind of feel like they're moving in slow motion afterwards? Because your muscle's doing this, you put ice on it, all of a sudden it forces to slow down because of that. So it stops that spasming. Your muscles are usually spasming because it's in pain to protect itself. And then all of a sudden it spasms, it's in pain, and then in pain, and it starts to spasm, and it starts this pain spasm cycle. And that's a bad thing. It's hard to stop that. Well, that ice is one of the things that can really stop it because it freezes it and slows it down. Then you get all this blood flow through there. And now here's the secret to icing, okay? This is, I think a lot of people miss. You get a bag of ice, not a cold pack, a bag of ice in a Ziploc gallon bag because it stays colder longer. Those ice packs, I feel like, start losing temperature almost at skin contact. Put it on the air for about 20 minutes. Moist paper towel between the ice and the skin to protect the skin. All right, make sure it's moist so it can transfer that cold. And then let it sit there 20 minutes, and then you take it off. Now you wait for that skin to get back to room temperature, and then you ice it again. But it has to come back because that's when the magic happens. That's where everything dilates and your body heals it again. So we're going to freeze to death. Oh, we take the cold away. It brings it back to normal. Awesome. It could take 30 minutes. It could take 2 hours. The longer it takes, usually the more dysfunction there is. So then we put ice on there again. And then, boom, it does the same thing. Take it off, 20 minutes. And if you do a third time, it's more than 3 times effective. So usually 3 is my magic number for people. So if I feel like there's inflammation and there's issues with that and there's spasming, I will say I want you to do ice 3 times a day using that method for 3 days straight. And usually at the end of that point, you're in a pretty good place. And plus when you ice again, it's kind of like rinsing out the tissue. I always like use a dirty sponge concept. You got a dirty sponge in your hand. If you just squeeze it and hold it and dip it in a bucket of clean water without letting it go, it stays dirty because it never absorbs clean water. But what do you want to do if you want to rinse that sponge out? You got to let it go, let it absorb, squeeze it again. Squeeze it again. And so that's basically icing 3 times. It's like squeezing the sponge 3 times. Fresh water, fresh blood, it all works together. So that is usually a very good way for icing to go. And so I think if it doesn't work, often it's not being used properly.
Yeah, that's really great. I myself have benefited greatly from ice. Like I know it worked. Like like you can't tell me it didn't work because it did.
Yeah, yep. I've seen it work too often, and experience has got to trump what research is saying with what they're doing, because anything could say research can do it. It's like, oh yeah, we tested on 10 people and it didn't help them. Great, that really doesn't say much, but that can be documented that research was done and ice didn't help. I read an article once said research says water is not that helpful for the human body. What? Really? So it varies, but I stand pretty strong saying ice is probably the closest thing we have to a miracle cure on a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Should be every athlete's best friend.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's good.